Okay, so
Wait, so you really have the need to tell this story?
yeah, it's part of who I am.
You're so
I
cliche.
said I was gonna share everything.
You're like every other queen on YouTube. Really, you're gonna compare me to another person? Yeah.
You're just
I
incredible.
mean, ultimately, you really are talking about me.
Oh yeah, it's
So-
always about you.
Tell your story.
I will tell the
I'm
story.
all ears.
Why can't you just like relax?
Yeah, but just wait, because you're gonna get that phone call. Your
What
mom's
phone
gonna call.
Really,
She
you
can
have
be
to
happy
bring
with
her
that,
up.
so
She's gonna like it with or
just be
without
ready.
the story. I mean, whatever. She's gonna have to deal with
whatever.
it.
I'm leaving.
Really? You? Why?
Okay, so now that this bitch is gone, we can get to business, and I can tell you my story. What are you still doing?
I'm still here. Well, I thought I brought
that's
you
nice of
a
you.
glass of wine. Yeah, you're gonna need it.
All right, just
This, okay.
all right, just leave
I-
it there. I'll enjoy it. Thank you. She might be right.
Of course I'm right. I'll just sit here and listen to your story.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you guys my story about how I came out. I think that every gay boy, every gay man, or anybody in the LGBTQ community has a story of how they come out. To some it might be traumatic, to others might be, you know, nothing, or their mothers just said, I already knew. But to me it was kind of different, and I'm sure I am one of many people in the world that have experienced this situation and could actually relate to my story. You know, the question arises of when did I know that I was gonna be gay? And I kind of now look back and see these tendencies as a kid of homosexuality, and I recognize that I wasn't made gay. I think it's something that I was born with. I'm looking down at my notes because it's quite a long story.
It's gonna be like past 30 minutes. If you can handle it, you better sit there and get yourself another glass of wine and drink with him too.
You know, there's actually two sides to every story, so what I'm going to tell you is more of my personal perspective and how things came down for me and how I felt things happen. So I think that my story, I could actually divide it in two parts. My life as a gay man before I moved to New York, or as a gay boy, because I was still very, very young, and my life after I moved to New York. And I think part of my coming out was traumatic because I was influenced by a lot of the way that our parents raised us. And this video is not necessarily to throw any kind of like dirt to my parents or dirt to the church.
Oh, but there is dirt.
I think the church as an institution, they try to do their best in, you know, dealing with humans, but as anything, you know, humans are flawed, and these institutions for the most part can become very toxic to gay children and to gay kids, to the LGBT community. And towards my parents, I think they're immersed in a world that they think and they still believe that they were doing the right thing at the time. So the first part of my story really starts with, you know, recognizing and exploring my sexuality as a human being. As a teenager, when I was 13 years old, I had my first experience with a man, and I had just, you know, recognized and realized what masturbating was. The experience that I had was actually a guy who came into as an exchange student, or he was doing a semester in a school that I was around, that was close to our house. This first experience was very, very traumatic, because it's like this 13-year-old, imagine, you know, kind of falling in love with this person, and we would stay for hours talking. At night, you know, the lights would go off, and eventually we would just kind of like start to explore our bodies. And it was a weird situation because in my mind I knew that it was wrong, you know, wrong as in like at the time knowing that it's wrong. So I the morning would come and I would feel this level of shame that was so strong. But after I kind of, didn't speak to him anymore due to shame, because the reality was just this guilt that I had at the time, I started to live this period of like denial.
Oh, honey, the fantasy. Okay.
The life that I was living was through the lens of the right and the wrong of what the church was teaching, or this Bible-centric ideal. So when I came across this experience, it was extremely conflicting for me. And as a child, I grew up being extremely precocious, and I was the kid to like be preaching at the altar and talking about the Bible. I would learn the Bible verses, and I would talk to my parents about church, and I was just very involved. I was like, I would sit down with adults and talk to them about like, the doctrine of the church and how it should be run. And when we were in Miami, we were part of like this like really orthodox kind of like Baptist church. And then 3 years after we were in Miami, we moved to a town called Northport, and there we started engaging with a church, the only Latin church that was around, which was a Pentecostal church. And this is where like I start to become extremely involved in the church.
Bitch, you're making this sound like it's some Scientology episode on TV.
There was this group of people or this family that came into town from Orlando, and they were doing retreats, and they wanted to involve this church to do a retreat. And I have to say that this situation kind of scarred me, because I decided to come to this retreat and be part of it. We all kind of knew what we were going in for, and it was just this idea of healing, this idea of changing our lives, of leaving our sinful ways behind. And I come into this retreat knowing that I had had this experience with this boy, and I knew that I was in the wrong, and I was kind of still suffering and feeling this shame and this guilt within me, knowing that I was wrong. And I go to the retreat, and I remember one of the nights that we were like the first night we were supposed to open up and confess our sins so that we could be set free. And we all sat one by one telling our situations, from lying to cheating on our wives to being in jail and having sexual relations outside marriage, etc. When it came my turn to speak, I don't think that that group of men was ready to hear that this 13-14-year-old boy was like about to tell them that he had a gay encounter. I felt the need to tell my story to these people because I had so much pain in my heart. And I opened up to them and I told them everything, and it was just like this outburst of tears and emotions. And then the next day in this retreat, like somehow you kind of feel good by like opening up to all these people, thinking that you're kind of delivered, because that was like the whole idea of coming to this retreat, that you're gonna change your life. I know what you're thinking. And the next day we did a whole session of rebuking demons, and oh my God, it's still in my mind, standing in this group of people, and we're all in this like hyper hysterical trance of like people speaking in tongues and people screaming and yelling as if they had demons inside them. And
girl, it was intense. These people were like all over the place, and it's just like, you just making shit up. You are just making shit up.
It was really intense to live throughout that, people vomiting and projectile vomiting, and all these experiences, I honestly believe them to be super subjective. I can't really say that they're real, that they were induced or not, or that they were actually spiritual situations, because every person experienced a difference. For me, I was just standing there kind of thinking, okay, I just want to be delivered from this gay demon. And I was sitting there, standing there, with my eyes closed, praying, and these people were rebuking all kinds of demons. The whole session kind of ended. We ended up in this like euphoria of laughter at the end.
El espíritu de la risa decían que se llamaba. El espíritu de la risa. Whoever made up the spirit of laughter, honey. Oh my God, I can't. I remember these things, and it's just like, I don't understand. Who comes up with this shit?
Part of me felt like I was kind of pushing myself to do these things and to laugh and to scream and to yell and to cry.
Honey, but you and I knew that was not real. Like, that was an act. It's called acting.
And looking back, I recognized that it was kind of like all a lie. And I knew at the time as well, part of me, that I was going to go back home and 2 weeks later, I was gonna go back and look for porn and masturbate.
I remember that story when Dad was like, "Who was looking for porn, gay porn on the computer?" Because we were all sharing the same computer. I denied it all. I blamed it on somebody else.
It was just crazy to live throughout that situation and experience that, because I felt like I was acting and it was kind of induced. But that wasn't the worst part. Towards the end of that, okay, we're coming back, and all of a sudden everybody thinks that we're delivered, that it's gone, that these demons and these sins are healed, and that God has forgiven us and all these things.
The lies, the lies, the lies. Oh my God, I can't even. The lies.
The worst part comes when we are back in the church and we have to tell our testimony. I remember being a Friday night, and the church had approximately, from 40 to 60 people in the audience, and everybody one by one was kind of applauded and said, you come and tell your testimony to the church of what you've been delivered from. And here comes, I wasn't gonna stand up and say anything, because I was just like, back of my head, I knew it wasn't real. But the whole entire church started applauding and saying, "Come on, Sergio, tell your story. Go up there and tell us what you experienced, what your life, what the Lord has saved you from." Oh my God! Hold on, I need a drink. So I go up to the altar, and I see this mass of people. I said, "These people want a story? I'm gonna give them a story." So I stand up, and my parents are in the audience, and I'm about to like tell them what I experienced. And I go up to this altar, and I start telling my story of how the Lord delivered me from this gay demon that was inside me, and I was cured. And I told him, I called in front of the church this guy by first and last name, and I said that I was with him. And I mean, it was silent in that church. Everybody was like in shock. People were crying. I could see my mother sitting there and my father sitting in the audience, thinking that, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. This is real. And it was just such like a painful situation, because I didn't come out of the closet then. I was, what did I call it? I was called out. I was called out. Like, I didn't even have a chance to like process what I had just experienced. And they called me out into the altar to tell my story and to come out of the closet, and like basically coming out of the closet, that I had this experience, but I wasn't really coming out of the closet. I was going in the I was coming out of the closet to come back in. Oh boy.
It really has taken us a minute to forgive these events.
Now I'm living again in denial. I was pushed out. I was called out to be out of the closet and to tell my story. And then this whole coding of deliverance and forgiveness from God, it just made me, think that it was all gone. To my parents, it was very painful, and it was very embarrassing for them to see that their child, their golden, precocious child that was preaching in the altar, and it was like this magnificent child of God with so much promise of, you know, whatever, is gay. Like,
now look at us. Look at us. What have we become? The embarrassment, the black sheep of the family.
they also go into this denial, you know, and I tell you that they go in denial because this is something that I spoken to with my mother of, like, that they went into denial as well, that it was going to be fine, that God had cleared all these like demons from me. But no, it you know, time went on. I got into the relationship with this girl. She fell in love with me, and I liked her, but I felt no sexual attraction. So I kind of hid and masked all these excuses to not have any like sexual encounters. Obviously at 15, 14, you're just kind of exploring, you know, you're just like touching or whatever. I wasn't really asking to, I'm not sure that she was really asking to like do the whole thing.
Oh, she was asking for the whole thing. You know she was. She wanted the whole thing.
I think in my mind I was still very young, but I would mask this relationship in the idea of I have to wait till marriage. I have to wait till you know, I'm grown to have sex with you. And we stayed together, and then it got to a point where like I just could not be with this girl anymore, and I broke her heart, and it was like absolutely awful. And later on, like towards the end of high school, I befriended a couple of gay friends, and then I realized, I was like, okay, this is not going away. I need to get out of this town. I was living in, you know, in this like fear of getting caught that being gay. But still, like the church had me and the religion, the doctrine had me bound. Sorry, I dropped a couple of things. Had me bound, and I was still in this like idea that and knowing that I was wrong. Obviously, you know, things have changed, and that's not how the way I think now. But I left Florida, you know, subconsciously knowing that I was gonna go out and be crazy in New York, and I hoed it up.
Oh, we sure did. We hold it up for sure.
I came to the city, and I lived my life, and I did what I had to do. It was kind of hard because I was, you know, to my parents, you know, there's one thing that it just, when you come out of the closet, it's more of you come out to your parents or the people that you care. And then there's another side, which is coming out to society. To my parents, I was just like, you know, going to college, becoming this architect, whatever, all these things. And to me, it was liberation. It was freedom. It was just like, I'm going to go out there and do my thing and meet with boys and hook up and experience sex and all these things. I did it. I came out here. I came to New York, and I had my moments.
You had the moments, baby. Yes, you did. You had your moments. You had your moments.
To the eyes of my family and my parents, I was still, you know, this good church-going child because I would go to church on Sundays. I still, here in New York, I continue to live this lie. And I met a boy, which we totally fell in love. And it was like my first love that was corresponded, and that I was willing to kind of experience, and I had that experience where we fell in love, and being still bounded to the church and to the doctrine and to all these things that you were taught as a child, I broke things off with this guy, and that's another heart that I broke because of religion. And we were together for like a whole summer and like a year and a half. The summer and the fall, I think we went in the winter. I was like, I can't do this anymore. You know, in the eyes of God, this is wrong. I'm going to hell. I'm gonna, you know, be condemned. And I literally told this guy that I couldn't be with him anymore because this was ungodly.
Nasty, so rude, and so nasty.
it's almost like this weird guilt knowing that because of my religious beliefs and my short-mindedness, I broke up with this guy. Anyway, so time passes, and by 2012, I'm fed up. I'm like, I can't continue to live this double life, telling my mom that I'm going to church, but at the same time, I'm hooking up with some guy. Like, I just could not live this double life anymore, and I needed to, like, do me and be independent from my parents and from what they expected me to do and what they wanted me to do. This is already like the second part of my story, because I divided it in two forms of, like, the first part I was called out, and the second part I was ratted out. They ratted me out. This bitch ratted me out. I didn't have a chance to come out to my parents, like, sit down and tell them. Somebody told on me.
If I ever see that bitch one more time in my life, I swear I slap her.
But this is how it happened. I had a friend in elementary school that lived in Miami. When we lived in Miami, and he was like my closest friend. He turned out to be gay as well after a couple of years. And when I decided to make this trip to Puerto Rico, during this time I used to connect with my mother every single day, talk to her and have this, like, conversation. We've always been kind of very close, and I would have this conversations with her every day about what I was doing, what I was not doing, where I was going, where I was at. And when I went to Puerto Rico, I completely disappeared. I didn't answer their phone calls. I didn't talk to them, because I was kind of finding myself, or finding the strength to, after coming back from that Puerto Rico trip, to talk to them and tell them, listen, I'm a gay man, and this is what I want to do with my life, and this is what I want to continue to. I can't continue to live this double life, and I don't want to be fighting this so-called demon, because I don't think I am possessed. This is just who I am. So I disappear for a couple of days. When I come back, when I leave Puerto Rico, I land in Miami, and I go to the house of that friend that I had in elementary school, and I talked, and I stay at his house, and he was living with his mother at the time. And I open up to his mom, thinking that because he is gay and she accepts him, and that she is okay with that, I could open up to her and be honest about what I was doing in New York and how I was living my life. And I told her that I was gay. I told her that I was working in bars, that I was, go-go dancing, because I was a go-go dancer for a long time, like about 5 years. And I told her that I was working and doing that, dancing in bars. I was open to her, and I even, like, did a whole demonstration of, like, go-go dancing, and I put on my little thong and, like, everything. Everything was just so ridiculous. I tell this woman all these things and confiding in her, thinking that she was gonna, accept me and everything was gonna be fine. And then the next morning, she calls my mother, because they knew each other from when I was in elementary school with my friend, and they talked, and she told her absolutely everything that I had confided in her.
Oh, honey, but let me tell you, you are a dumb bitch for trusting this woman.
My dad drove down from Northport to Miami to pick me up, because I was gonna stay with them for a couple of days. And the ride was 3 hours, and it was the longest ride I've had.
He preached for the gods, honey. He was not having any of it.
Talking to him about how I was gay, and that I wasn't planning on changing that, and they just didn't take it well. My war was actually more internal, of accepting myself and coming out to myself, than actually coming out to my parents. I came out to them. It was painful to see them suffer and cry about this, but I had accepted myself already, and I was just like, I can't think of your process as a parent to accept your child. It's been hard enough to accept myself, and it's been hard to have a relationship with my family knowing that they don't accept me, and knowing that I live a full life that they are not willing to share with, and I learned to live with that. You know, most people say, oh, they're gonna come around. Listen, when religion holds you hostage, and when this belief and culture is so strong within you, it's hard to make those things change. And when I talk to my parents, they are not willing to change that ideal, and they're not willing to accept my life. Not with Paul, not with anyone. They, to this day, and I received a phone call from my mother yesterday. I don't want to see you walking around in wigs and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Mom? Yeah, girl. If my parents never change their mind, which I know they won't, there's still a level of respect for the life that I live. And sometimes those limitations are there, and we have to just really respect them. In terms of just coming out to society, I feel like that's a part of that. You just kind of do you, and that's it. Just start doing you, and people either leave your life or stay in your life or whatever.
Come on, girl, you said enough. Wrap it up. People got lives to live.
I want to create another video eventually on how I conciliated my beliefs into this reality that I live in as a gay man, and how the Bible itself, I believe it to be translated incorrectly and interpreted incorrectly, and how that can actually bring a lot of healing for the gay man that has lived through Christianity and a strong Judeo-Christian ideal. I heard from somebody, make your mess your story. And that was my mess. I had a mess inside. I had a mess inside my heart. I had a mess inside my mind. And after many years of reading, accepting, and healing, I have come to realize that my mess is now a message that could probably inspire somebody else to live a more authentic life. Every person's journey is different, and now I am happy where I am, and I have no fear of condemnation. So yeah, if you made it to this point in the video and didn't get tired of me yapping, I thank you, and I appreciate that you took the time to listen to this, and it would mean a lot to me if you give it a like, subscribe. If you don't, it's fine. I understand. Bitch, where's my wine?
Oh, you
Bring
want more wine? Okay, hold on. Let me go to the store. I'll be back, because all of a sudden I'm your servant.
Anyway, it's long enough. I'm gonna cut it out. See you later.